Yeah, sure. Thank you, Simon. So welcome everybody. So this is a very interesting presentation. So this is really looking at how we can look at complex ERP environments and systems, and how we can look at the metadata and the data structures behind those, and how we can fit those into our enterprise architecture landscape. So previously, when we've done webinars and presentations within this context of the Open Group, we've talked a lot about Archimate and TOGAF, and in my role here, I'll be talking a little bit about those as we go through. The main bulk of the presentation will be done by Roland Bullivant and Nick Porter, whom I've known for many years, and who are experts in the area of ERP and metadata. So just a little bit about Corso. So Roland, if you can go to the next slide. We were created in 2011. We've got worldwide offices in North America, in the US and Canada. We've got a head office in the UK and an office in Melbourne in Australia. We're all mostly former IBM employees, where we looked after the Rational System Architect product, which is the enterprise architecture tool within IBM. And we created the company to look at gaps in enterprise architecture and what we call strategic planning, which is really looking at things like ideas management, innovation management, feeding through into portfolio management and enterprise architecture. So we are both business partners with IBM. So we resell products. We also host software, and we've also got consulting and training services. We're also certified in TOGAF and Archimate as well. Okay, so the next slide, please, Roland. Okay, so the agenda for today, we're going to go through just briefly some introductions about who we are, and then Roland will take you through some background and some case studies, and then Nick is going to focus on a demonstration so you can see the software in action. And at the end there, we'll bring things together, and again, as Simon said, we'll take some questions at the end, and we'll divide those up between the three of us. So next slide, please, Roland. So as mentioned, I'm Martin Owen. My background within Corso is I'm responsible for strategy and the product line. I'm also the CEO at Corso. In my past, I've looked after the system architect product set within IBM. I've also worked for a company called Telelogic and a company called Popkin. So I've had about 20 odd years in the enterprise architecture industry. So over to you, Roland.
Thanks very much. So thanks, Martin. My name's Roland Bullivant, and thank you for the introduction. I've been working with Silwood Technology for almost 5 years now, and look after the sales, marketing, and channel aspects. So my job today is really to introduce the concept behind Sapphire and the sort of particular challenge that the particular problem that we've set out to solve many years ago now for people, customers, and I'm sure many of you who have SAP or Oracle applications as a fundamental platform or a fundamental part of your IT strategy in terms of the systems of record that you have within your organizations. And those applications are strategic and fundamental, as I said, to the running of your businesses. And what's come about over many years is that the level of complexity that those applications present when we're trying to incorporate them into, for example, enterprise architecture, where we might be looking at how we understand those applications and their data structures in the context of enterprise information integration or planning for the future, trying to understand the as-is data models behind those applications or that underpin those applications. Maybe looking at the impact of change. So if we start to change parts of applications, what impact does that have on the data structures, and how do we manage the impact of that change? Understanding and using the metadata for behind those applications in terms of just pure data modeling, so that we have a an understanding of the business glossary that those applications that are made up by those applications, and also coping. How do we cope with the data implications of mergers and acquisitions, rationalizing applications, consolidating applications, migrating to new versions? All of those types of projects and problems are uniquely difficult with these large applications from SAP and Oracle. And obviously there's a whole range of applications and projects and initiatives that would also be impacted by the data complexity underpinning those applications, for data warehousing, application integration, master data management, data governance, etc. So any data-related project or initiative is going to be challenged because of the nature of those applications. And obviously that's because those systems support a very broad range of business processes, and that means that they're very large and complex. So, for example, SAP, if you buy SAP now, it probably comes with more than 90,000 tables in its basic native state, which obviously means that there's a very high degree of complexity. And the Oracle applications are not as large, but still complex and still have a significant number of base tables. And as with all things, the business often requires that those applications are customized, so that then you add to the number of tables, or you make changes to those tables, which means that it can be even more difficult, more complex to keep a handle on what's there, to be able to find the metadata and find the models. A further level of complexity is presented because the internal functions, for example, looking at the data model, were not built for non-technical usage. The underlying systems were built with the fact that they would always be administered, used, and looked at by technical SAP specialists or Siebel or PeopleSoft specialists. And when they were originally developed, those applications were not really built with the outside world in mind. They were built to be very self-contained, and integration was typically a challenge. So the problem that many people find and that we uniquely solve, and we'll go on to show you tell you how we solve this problem and show you how we solve it, is answering that question, that for any of those enterprise architecture requirements, those data-related project needs, it's answering the question, where is my data? How do I find the right tables that I need for those data models to understand the as-is state of my SAP system, or my Oracle e-Business Suite system, or my JD Edwards system, where I have thousands and thousands of tables, but I only actually need a very few, because trying to look at models of hundreds or thousands of tables is impractical and impossible to navigate. And of course, all the tables are related to each other. So how do we find the relationships between those tables? And then how do we understand what the meaning is behind those tables as well? And the challenges to that are, it's impractical or impossible to reverse engineer that technology, or those models, those data structures, using standard modeling tools. And most of the applications, or the applications themselves, don't really provide tools which are usable by non-specialists. And of course, enterprise architects, data modelers, data analysts, data architects are always working to time and budget pressure. So you're always looking to try and do something quickly, when in fact the tools are not there within the system or within the modeling environment to really give you that assistance and that help to get that information quickly. Just as an example, from reverse engineering an SAP system, for example, or any system with a modeling tool, you will get tables, you'll get a list of tables with some information in them, but as you can see from the information here, and this was pulled from an SAP system, these tables are not particularly useful unless you happen to know what all of those abbreviations mean. And of course, SAP having 90,000 tables means that reverse engineering it means that you're actually not much better off unless you know exactly what you're looking for and how those tables are joined together for the purposes of your project. And most companies, most organizations today use a combination of manual effort, so they will go and ask technical specialists or employ consultants to help them find the tables that they need within their systems. They may try and see whether the documentation is helped. They may be able to find integration tools or ETL tools that have lists of tables, but again, that means that you need to know what you're looking for. There's very little search or filtering capability. And as one of our customers said recently, that they were using a sort of informed guesswork to try and get them some way towards the answer. And another of our customers was actually looking at Google to see whether Google could find them data models on for SAP. And of course, there's lots of hurdles that these methods throw up in terms of how do you does your technical specialist, for example, understand exactly what you're asking for in the context of your planning for the future or your data modeling requirements? You may need to rekey information. Obviously, there's inaccuracies potentially brought into that. Are you working with the latest update with the tables as they've been changed and customized? And of course, there's a lot of risks in terms of delays and rework and overspend involved in that. So what would be better would be if there was a solution that would provide you with all the table information in one place, which included all the customizations so that it was 100% accurate, working with the system as implemented at your site, that automatically produced all of the relationships that you required, so it was easy to understand the context, and provided then full search capabilities and an application hierarchy and different mechanisms for searching and filtering and finding the exact groups of tables that you need, and then being able to share and reuse that information across a variety of data modeling, data integration, metadata management tools, and obviously again across projects and teams, so that it becomes a sort of center of excellence, if you will, for metadata, for ERP metadata in the organization. And just as a quick background about Silwood, so that's what Silwood Technology do, and we are partners with Corso. So Corso implement our tools within their solutions and their products. So we have a very close relationship with Martin and the team. And we started out life as modeling specialists and continually came up against this problem of trying to reverse engineer SAP systems with modeling tools. Realized that the struggle or the challenge is really the fact that the metadata you need is not in the system catalog, it's in the data dictionary. And as a result, we built Sapphire to solve this problem, to be able to find the metadata and allow people who are not specialists to be able to use it and utilize it in a very wide variety of projects. And it does reduce the discovery time by at least 60%. In fact, I've got a case study where someone's got a productivity gain of 90%, which I'll run through very briefly with you in a few moments. So what Sapphire does is, working from left to right, is we import, we connect to the source application as it's implemented. So that means that we connect to the data dictionary tables and bring in all the metadata for the applications as implemented. At the moment, we work with SAP and the Oracle applications. In the next release of Sapphire, which is due out this quarter, we will be adding Salesforce and a more generic capability to import metadata from a broader range of applications. So the metadata is brought into Sapphire, into a repository, and it's immediately usable by the data analyst, the data modeler, data architect, who has full access to all of the searching, filtering, analysis capabilities to bring the number of tables down to a manageable number so that you can then visualize that model and start making use of it in your other applications or other tools, modeling tools, etc., for your particular projects. The content that's created we call subject areas, which are effectively, if you will, business metadata objects. So they can be reused and shared and amended and edited by other users as appropriate, so that people can build a ever-expanding library of that content that's valuable and usable across the organization. And Sapphire can become a single source of ERP metadata which is shared and reusable, and providing a sort of center of excellence for ERP metadata that can be used to speed up projects, help make projects, the delivery of projects more accurate, more timely, more on budget, across a very wide variety of applications and areas. And Nick will show you how the product works in a few moments in time. I'd like to just make a point as well that as I'm sure you're all aware, there's a huge amount of marketing energy, I won't call it hype, marketing energy around big data, in-memory, Hadoop, HANA type areas and applications at the moment. And so we're sort of beginning to live in a new, what we call low latency world, where people are looking for real-time data, looking for faster analytics, faster ERP. The challenge with that, as you can see from the quote there from Brian Raver at Medtronic, is even though you want that faster analytics, that faster access to data, which is fine and perfectly reasonable and rational, the source data intelligence challenge is exactly the same. You still have to find the right tables. You still have to find the right source of information for those projects. The challenge with it, I guess, is that the problem with it is that because everyone's expecting everything a lot more quickly, delays can have more impact. And typically organizations do not want to wait 3-6 months to find the right sets of data in their SAP systems to move into HANA or to Teradata or into Hadoop or whatever. So even though we're living in this, we're beginning to live in this world, this challenge of low latency is still exactly the same. And I said I'd just talk very quickly about some case studies. So the one at the top is a global semiconductor company who are using Sapphire to reverse engineer, or they used Sapphire to reverse engineer 30 odd of their SAP systems for application rationalization and a global data warehouse project. And what they found was that what was previously taking 4 or 5 of their modelers about a month to do with the old methods, with the manual methods of trying to find the right tables related to transactions in SAP, for example, now takes one modeler less than a week. So that's about a 90% productivity gain, which they're obviously very pleased with. I'll just talk very quickly about the fourth one down, which is the global personal care company, which is Procter & Gamble. They're using Sapphire for project governance and enterprise architecture assurance. So all of that work around making sure that the data models are understood across a variety of projects, making sure that the planning is done correctly and the integration is done correctly. And they use Sapphire for that. And the bottom one is an aircraft manufacturer that begins with B on the west coast of America, who are using Sapphire to help them understand the sync points, so where data is going to go in their SAP systems as they implement SAP and they migrate data in from from a variety of other systems. So in the interest of time, I won't go into any more of those, but if anyone wants to learn a bit more about those, then if you sort of contact us back through Corso or contact Corso, and they'll be happy to share those with you. So I'd like to now hand over to Nick, who is going to take you through the demonstration of Sapphire.
That's great. Thanks very much, Roland, for that introduction. My name's Nick Porter. I'm the Technical Director of Silwood Technology. And what I'm going to do in just a second is to switch into showing you the actual product itself. And I'll just give you an introduction to some of the main features of the product. And so in just a second, you should be able to see my desktop appearing. And what I'm going to do is concentrate on an SAP system, because as Roland mentioned, the SAP is by far the biggest, but a lot of the features I'm going to show you are equally applicable to the Oracle applications that we address as well. Those being PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, the Oracle e-Business Suite, and Siebel. And as Roland also mentioned, we will shortly be adding Salesforce capability to that list. And what you can see in front of you now is the kind of main screen of Sapphire, and the most commonly used functions are organized into these clickable tiles that you can see in the middle of the screen. And they are themselves organized into three main areas which reflect the way that the product is typically used. And the first one you can see has got the title Discover. We use this phrase Discover, Scope, Deliver to really explain the workflow of the product. And the Discover process is how we go about extracting the metadata from the source ERP system. So in order to do that, we, as Roland mentioned, we attach to the data dictionary tables of each of these environments that we reverse engineer. So we're not looking at the database system catalog. The database system catalog does not store useful business information about these environments. If we want to try and understand the data structure from a business perspective, then we need to look at the proprietary data dictionary of each of these environments. So that Discover process is where we attach to the source system, be it an SAP or an Oracle system, and we reverse engineer. We pull metadata about classical data modeling concepts, things like tables and relationships and columns and indexes. We pull that kind of information out of the data dictionary. But we also pull additional information about how that data is used by the application. I'm going to just briefly show you what I mean by that in a few minutes' time. And once we've done that discovery process of pulling the metadata out, then the real capabilities of the product come into play then, and that's this scope area. And by scope, what we mean is bringing the tens of thousands of tables that make up a system like SAP or the Oracle apps, bringing those down into more manageable groups. So nobody really wants to deal with metadata on the scale of thousands of tables. Whatever the information management project that you're dealing with, typically you're going to want to be able to zero in on the perhaps 20 or 30 or maybe 100 tables that are relevant to your particular requirement. And that's what the scoping features are all about. It rapidly allowing you to find the needle of relevant tables in the haystack of the tens of thousands of tables in the system. And then finally, the last part, the deliver tile at the bottom there, that allows us to take these subsets, what we call subject areas that we've created, and then export those into a range of third-party tools. So let's This is, as I mentioned, this is an SAP system that's already gone through the reverse engineering process. So let's look at some of the very simple ways to start off with that we can start to explore that metadata. And if I use this feature here and press the search button, what I'll see now is a list of all the base tables that we've reverse engineered from this particular SAP system. And if you look to the bottom, you can see it says number of records, 98,733. So in this particular SAP system, which is a fairly typical, what's known as an ECC6 system, there's nearly 100,000 tables in the system. And looking at the list of each of those tables, that first field shows us what the technical name, the physical name of the table is, not a terribly helpful name, and then the descriptive name, which gives us an idea of what that table contains, is in this next column. So the sort of thing we could do is we can start to do searches. So we could do a wildcard search on that business description and say, let's find every table in the system that's got customer somewhere in its description. And we get then a set of matching hits. But given that there are 98,000 tables, we still get a quite significant number of tables coming back. There's still over 1,200 tables with that string customer somewhere in their description. And there are a number of different ways that we can now start to subset that. One of the easiest is if you look to the far right, there is a row count for each table. So at the time we extract the metadata, we also take a snapshot of the row count. We work out how many rows there are in each table, and you can see quite a lot of these have got 0 rows. What I can do is I can filter out those tables, and I can say I only want to see the tables that have got at least 1 row in them, and that's brought that now down to 328, so it's a little bit more manageable. And the next thing that I'm going to do is look now at how each of these tables is related to other tables in the system. And these 2 columns here, number of child tables and number of parent tables, they show for each table in the list how many child-related and parent-related tables it's got. And what I can do is I can sort that result set by number of relationships. So what I'm doing here then is I'm sorting the tables to show those that have got the most child relationships. In other words, those which are parents to most other tables in the system with the string customer in the title automatically come to the top of the list. And some of you may be familiar with the SAP system, and those of you who are will recognize that this table that's now at the top, KNA1 is its physical name, General Data in Customer Master. That's one of the main tables for storing customer information in an SAP system. And if I double click on that table, I can now see the columns that make up that table. And again, the first column shows us the technical name, the internal name for each attribute, and then the business name, the descriptive name, is in this third column here. So I can see that I've got things like a region and an address and a name on there. The first 2 attributes are the primary key by virtue of this gold key symbol, and then I've got a whole series of foreign keys, what SAP tends to call check tables. They're lookup tables, but in data modeling terms, they're foreign keys. You'll also notice that as I click on each attribute, there's a long attribute definition comes up. Again, we're pulling this information out of SAP. So SAP does a very thorough job in documenting each of the objects in its system, and we're pulling out the description which helps again to understand the context of the data. And where I've also got a foreign key, for instance, this one, the region is a foreign key, I can navigate along that relationship. I can go up the relationship here, show parent table details, and I can navigate along a relationship and look at the parent table that supplies that foreign key. So we're now looking at the taxes region table that supplies the foreign key to the customer table. So let's go back to the list of tables. So just to give you a kind of feeling now about how we can start to make these what we call subject areas, which are groupings of tables. This looks like if I was trying to understand customer, this looks like something I probably will find useful. So what I can do is I can make a subject area. So let's call this subject area Demo Customer. And what I can do now is I can drag and drop that table and bring it into the subject area. So the subject area is just simply a folder where we can group together tables of interest. It's a little bit like a playlist where I can just make references to a set of tables. And what I'm also going to do, if I right mouse click on that table, I can look at more information about the related tables. And you can see at the top there that the 51 parent tables are at the top, and the 847 child tables are at the bottom. So you can sort of see that this must be a fairly important table because it's got 847 child tables. In other words, it participates in a large number of relationships within this system. And given we're only giving a little kind of hint as to what the product's about, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a few of these parent tables and I'm going to drag and drop them into this subject area. What I could do is I could filter out the tables, related tables that also have no data in. So if I click on this box at the top, only with data, it will subset that list into only those related tables that have got data. So I've now made a little subject area of tables that I might be interested in, and if I now go back to these tiles, the Discover, Scope, Deliver process, I could now go to the Deliver phase, and what I can do now is choose one or more subject areas that I want to export into third-party products. And so I'm choosing the demo customer subject area that I created. And now I can choose how I want to visualize this. Where do I want to now export the metadata? And we've got things like Irwin, and we've got the Rational Systems Architect product, the IBM Rational Systems Architect product. We also have our own built-in diagramming capability, which is a Visio-like simple diagramming capability. I'm actually going to show you the model in Irwin, which is a very popular product. So I'm going to overwrite an existing model, and I'm going to just quickly take that model now, and it uses the API, the Irwin API in this case, to make a model in Irwin. And if we use some of the other environments, something like Systems Architect, again, we would use the Systems Architect API to write a model. And that model's finished. It's only a very small model. And I'm now going to switch across into Irwin. And I'm now going to just do a couple of things to make the diagram presentable. And you can see a very, very simple diagram that we've created now. This is just showing it at the primary and foreign key level. So we're only showing the primary and foreign keys to make the model easy to understand. And it's now like any other Irwin model. It's got meaningful entity names. It's got the attribute names. And if I switch into the corresponding physical model, then we can see the corresponding physical name. So if we didn't have Sapphire, then these are the kind of table and column names that we'd have to contend with in terms of understanding the data structure. And of course, because there are no primary and foreign key constraints in the physical database, we wouldn't see those relationship lines. So we can only see those relationship lines by virtue of extracting the relationship information from the ERP. I've just got a couple more things I want to show you in this brief introduction to the product. So we've looked at a very simple way to look at the metadata. What we also have is what we call the application hierarchy, and the application hierarchy presents that same set of metadata, but in the context of how it's used by the application. So this tree structure here is a set of SAP modules. So again, we're pulling this information from the source environment, and again, we got things like accounting module, financials module. We scroll down a bit, we've got things like MDM, materials management, personnel management, which is what SAP tends to call HR. And then we can open up these nodes, and we'll come down through increasing levels of detail until we come down to actual individual objects, individual programs. So here, for instance, is a program that I've pretty much selected at random, notification of payment terms. This is a piece of executable code in the SAP system. And then I can see these blue icons. These are the base tables that are used by that program. So I can see which tables are referenced or updated by that particular program. And this hierarchy has got all the programs and functions within the SAP system that we reverse engineered. So what we can do, we can search this tree, because trying to navigate it in the method I've just shown you, given how big the tree is not a very practical way. We can search in the hierarchy for particular objects. So I could do a search for things like programs. I could do, for instance, a search for any program that's got the string master data somewhere in its description. And you can already see then the kind of scale of what's involved here. It's finding hundreds and hundreds of hits which are to do with master data. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to stop that. So we could try and refine that down to perhaps customer master data. And that just gives us 12 hits. And then we can look at the description. So there is a program here, customer master data, and if we double click on that, it will position us in the hierarchy where that program lives. And then again, each of these blue icons is a table used by that customer master data program. So you can imagine if we were trying to do, if our project, our information management project, involved customer master within SAP, this will be a very, very effective way of zeroing in on a set of relevant tables. I'm just going to show you one more thing. We've been concentrating on SAP, but I'm just going to show you that we've got very similar kind of capabilities for the other applications as well. So this is the repository manager for my local copy of SAP. And each of these systems in the list is a separate system. So I've got some Siebel systems, some J.D. Edwards systems, and if I was to switch, for instance, into a J.D. Edwards system, I can do exactly the same thing as I did with SAP. I can do a search in all the tables. There's a lot less tables in the J.D. Edwards system. There's only somewhere near 5,000 tables. But again, very unfriendly table names. So you've got the same kind of problem. 5,000 tables is a lot less than 90,000, but if you don't understand exactly what each of those tables is about, it's very, very difficult to find anything without having a clear understanding of the business content of each of these objects. Okay, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. I hope you found that useful, and I'm now going to hand it back for any questions.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, really. So I've left a slide on the screen. So if you want to follow up with further questions or further information, that it's sales@corso3.com, and we also have a landing page which talks about the ERP and the data discovery options. And this tooling is available both on SaaS, monthly rental, and perpetual licensing. So there are various ways we can get the tooling too. But I'd just like to thank everybody else for their time today. We look forward to hearing you on the next webinar.